So, imagine sitting down at a computer in a really sterile testing center. The fluorescent lights are buzzing overhead, the clock is ticking down from 4 hours, and, statistically, that nearly half the people sitting in the room with you are going to fail the Colorado State portion of this exam today.
Yeah, that is a harsh reality.
Right. It's intense. And if you recently typed, like, how to get a Colorado real estate license into your search bar, you've likely realized this isn't just a simple online certificate. I mean, it is a grueling, multi-step process.
It really is.
But you have found the ultimate roadmap. Welcome to the topic today. If you're listening to this, you are probably standing at the edge of a massive career shift. You're staring down this, mountain of forms and fees and legal jargon and just wondering where to even begin.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming.
Totally. So today, we're cutting through all of that. We're taking a comprehensive, realistic look at the process of licensure to become a Colorado real estate broker. We're going to answer every single major question you have about the hours, the background checks, exams, and, the final costs.
Precisely. And before we dive into those deep waters, I really want to establish some clear parameters for our discussion today.
Yeah, definitely.
Because my goal is to lay out the authoritative step-by-step reality of getting licensed. And throughout this conversation, I'm going to clearly distinguish between strict legal requirements, the things you absolutely must do, and what we would just consider industry best practices.
Which is an important distinction.
Right. I also want to make it unequivocally clear that we are not providing legal advice here or speculating on anyone's individual legal situations. We are simply unpacking the hard facts so you know exactly what the state demands of you.
I appreciate that clarity. So let's start at the absolute base of the mountain, right? Before you can even entertain the idea of selling a downtown Denver loft or like a sprawling ranch in the mountains, you have to complete the required education.
Yes, that's step one.
It's a prerequisite for everything else. And when you look at the national landscape, Colorado does not mess around. They demand 168 hours of pre-licensing education.
They do, yeah.
To put that in perspective, that is basically a full-time job for an entire month just sitting in a classroom or clicking through modules. So why is Colorado so incredibly demanding compared to states that only require, 60 or 90 hours?
Well, it's a phenomenal question. And understanding the why here makes those 168 hours feel a lot less like arbitrary torture.
Right. Yeah. It helps to know there's a reason.
Exactly. It all comes down to how real estate transactions are legally handled in Colorado. In many other states, a real estate agent essentially plays matchmaker. They negotiate the price, and then they immediately hand the entire process over to a team of attorneys who actually draft the contracts and handle the closing.
So the lawyers do all the heavy lifting in other states.
Right. But in Colorado, real estate brokers are essentially permitted to practice a limited form of law.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. You, as the broker, are the one filling in the blanks on these really complex, state-approved legal contracts. You're drafting the clauses, managing the deadlines, and facilitating the actual closing.
That is a ton of responsibility.
It is an immense legal responsibility.
Yeah.
And because you hold that, the state mandates one of the highest amounts of education in the entire country. They have to ensure you know exactly what you're doing before you start manipulating contracts that, govern million-dollar assets.
That completely changes the perspective. You aren't just learning sales tactics, you're essentially in a mini law school.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what exactly makes up those 168 hours? I mean, you can't just be reading the dictionary for a month.
No, not at all. It is a highly regulated, very specific curriculum.
Yeah.
Now, there is an exception. If you happen to hold a degree from an accredited college or university with a major course of study in real estate, you can use that as a substitute.
Oh, nice. Good to know.
But for the vast majority of applicants, you are completing a state-mandated breakdown. It requires 48 hours dedicated purely to real estate law and practice.
Okay, 48 hours there.
Then you have another 48 hours entirely focused on Colorado-specific contracts and regulations.
Got it.
On top of that, there are 24 hours just on real estate closings, plus comprehensive modules on trust accounts, strict record keeping, and practical applications.
Man, that is thorough. And who is actually policing all of this? Like, who dictates that the curriculum has to be exactly 168 hours?
So that authority rests with the Division of Real Estate, which is commonly referred to as the DRE.
Okay, the DRE.
And just to give you the bureaucratic hierarchy here, the Division of Real Estate is housed under the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. which is a principal executive department established by Colorado law, frequently called DORA. They are the ultimate governing body protecting the consumer in this state.
Gotcha. So, assuming you don't have that fancy real estate degree, you have to find a school to get these 168 hours done. And when you actually start Googling this, the options are completely overwhelming.
Oh, I'm sure. It's a flooded market.
Yeah, you see self-paced online courses for around $375. Then you see live physical classroom environments or live webinars charging upwards of $1,200. And human nature completely kicks in here.
Oh, of course it does.
Right. If I see a course for $1,200 and a course for $375, my immediate assumption is that the $1,200 course is teaching me industry secrets, or the instructors are somehow giving me a better education that guarantees I'll pass the test. Is there an actual difference in the education?
Factually and objectively, no.
Wait, really? None.
None. And this is a massive misconception that trips up a lot of prospective brokers. Both online formats and live classroom formats are designed to provide the exact same educational experience and cover the exact same required material.
That's wild.
Yeah, the course outlines are strictly approved by the state, and they are identical regardless of the provider. The $1,200 course does not have access to secret contract clauses that the $375 course doesn't.
So what exactly is that extra $800 paying for then?
You're basically paying for overhead, not a superior curriculum.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. A live classroom requires leasing commercial real estate, paying utility bills, printing physical textbooks, and compensating an expert instructor to literally stand in a room for 168 hours.
Yeah, that adds up fast.
Exactly. Whereas a self-paced online course is hosted on a digital server with significantly lower recurring costs. The pricing difference simply reflects the delivery format and the business model.
So it's just about how you prefer to learn.
Perfectly said. Neither method is better or worse than the other. The right choice is entirely dependent on how you learn best, your personal schedule, and your own preferences.
Okay, so no judgment either way.
Exactly. If you need a live human being to keep you accountable, the classroom might totally be worth the premium. But if you are highly disciplined and you want to study at 2 a.m. in your pajamas, the online route is perfect.
That is incredibly reassuring. And speaking of studying at 2 a.m., I imagine some people might struggle through certain modules, maybe taking the quizzes a few times before they actually pass. Does the state, or the public for that matter, get to see your report card?
No, you can rest easy on that front.
Yeah.
Your education records are not public.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. Whether you ace every module on the first try or have to retake a quiz on trust accounts 5 times, that is your private information. The state only cares that you successfully complete the accredited hours.
Good to know. Okay, so you've just spent 168 grueling hours learning how to legally handle million-dollar escrow accounts and navigate complex property law. Naturally, before the state actually hands you the keys to other people's life savings, they need to verify you aren't going to run off with the money.
Yes, which leads us right into the background check.
Exactly. You can't utilize your education if you can't pass the state's vetting process.
So you absolutely cannot. The Real Estate Commission's primary mandate is consumer protection. They need to know precisely who they are granting this legal authority to. So a fingerprint-based criminal history background check is mandatory for every single applicant.
And just to be clear, this isn't a quick internet search. They aren't just like scrolling through your social media.
Definitely not. This is a highly rigorous process. Your fingerprints are taken and processed through both the CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI.
Wow, so it's thorough.
Very. And the current state-approved provider program for this fingerprinting process happens to be CABS. But the important takeaway is that your state and national criminal history is thoroughly and accurately reviewed.
Which brings us to a massive source of anxiety for a lot of people. What if your background isn't pristine?
Right. It happens.
Let's say you had a DUI 10 years ago, or, you had a deferred judgment on a misdemeanor when you were in college. Does that mean you are automatically blacklisted from ever getting a real estate license in Colorado?
It does not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, having a previous conviction or deferred judgment does not serve as an automatic disqualification. The commission evaluates every single application on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so they look at the context.
Exactly. They're looking at the specific nature of the offense, the timeline of when it occurred, and what you have done since then to demonstrate rehabilitation. A decades-old misdemeanor is viewed very differently than, say, a recent conviction for financial fraud or embezzlement.
That makes total sense. But waiting until the very end of your 168 hours after you've spent weeks of your life and potentially $1,000 just to find out if the state is going to reject you, That sounds incredibly stressful.
It would be, which is why Colorado offers this fantastic mechanism called the PAO, or Preliminary Advisory Opinion.
The PAO, okay, what is that?
The PAO is a tool that allows you to submit your background information to the Real Estate Commission before you spend a dime on your formal education or exam fees.
Oh, wow. That's smart.
Yeah, they review your specific history and issue a non-binding opinion on whether your background might prevent licensure.
I love that concept. It's essentially like walking up to the bouncer at an exclusive club when you have a slightly damaged ID. Instead of waiting in line in the freezing cold for 2 hours just to get rejected at the door, the PAO lets you walk up early in the evening, show the bouncer your ID, and say, hey, before I wait in this line, is this going to be an issue? You get to know exactly where you stand.
It has a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
It saves you time, money, and immense emotional stress.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay, go ahead.
If the PAO is optional, isn't it insanely risky to voluntarily raise your hand and flag yourself to the commission before you even apply? Like, if you have a questionable past, why poke the bear? Why not just check no on the application, keep your head down, and pray they miss it?
Oh, I cannot emphasize this enough. That is the single worst strategy you could possibly employ.
Really?
Yes, it demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of what the background check is actually looking for. The Commission's goal is to ensure you possess honesty and integrity.
Right.
Because they are running CBI and FBI fingerprint checks, they are going to find the record, period.
Yeah, you aren't hiding from the FBI.
Exactly. So if you attempt to hide a past issue, that act of non-disclosure becomes a massive, immediate red flag. It is often a much bigger problem than the original offense itself.
Because it shows you're lying right now.
Precisely. An old mistake might be entirely forgivable, but actively lying about it on a state application demonstrates a current, active lack of integrity. And integrity is the foundation of protecting the public. So do not poke the bear by lying to it. Be transparent, own your history, and use the PAO process.
So the cover-up is always worse than the crime. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, all right, your background check clears, your 168 hours are done. Now, you have to prove you actually retained all that knowledge.
Yes, you do.
It's time to talk about the PSI exam.
Yes. PSI is the designated testing vendor for the state. This is where theory meets high-stakes reality.
The ultimate test.
The exam consists of 154 questions, and it is divided into two distinct sections, a national portion and a state portion. You're given roughly 4 hours, 230 minutes to be exact, to conquer the whole thing.
4 hours of intense focus. That's an absolute marathon. How does the scoring actually work between the two sections?
Well, for the national portion, which covers general real estate principles applicable across the country, there are 80 questions. You need to score a 75% to pass, meaning you must answer 60 questions correctly.
Okay, 75% on the national.
Then you have the state portion, which is hyper-focused on Colorado-specific laws. That side has 74 questions, and you need a 72% to pass, which equates to 53 correct answers.
Now, in the introduction, I mentioned that nearly half the people fail the state portion. Are those numbers actually real?
Unfortunately, yes. The pass rates are incredibly revealing.
Oh, boy.
Roughly 64% of test takers will pass the national portion on their first attempt. But the state portion is notoriously brutal, with a pass rate historically hovering right around 50 to 58%.
That is wild. Why such a drastic drop-off? What makes the Colorado state portion so vicious?
It goes right back to what we discussed earlier regarding brokers acting as pseudo-attorneys.
Oh, right. The contract.
Yeah, Colorado's real estate laws are uniquely complex.
Yeah.
We have highly specific regulations regarding water rights, intricate foreclosure laws involving the public trustee system, and incredibly strict zero-tolerance rules for how you manage trust accounts.
So they aren't just testing basic sales concepts.
Not at all. The state portion of the exam drills down into the agonizing minutia of state-approved contracts. They are testing if you are legally competent to not accidentally ruin someone's life through a contract error.
Jeez. So let's say the worst happens. I sit there for 4 hours, my brain is completely fried, and I hit submit. I pass the national side with flying colors, but I bomb the Colorado state side. Does that mean I have to pay the fee and sit for another complete 4-hour exam?
Fortunately, no. If you fail one section, you only have to retake the specific portion you failed.
Oh, that is a huge relief.
Yeah, and your passing score on the successful portion remains valid for a full calendar year.
Okay, good. And what about the cost for all this testing?
In terms of cost, your first attempt for the combined exam is $44.95. If you do find yourself needing to retake a portion, the fee is $42.50 for each subsequent attempt.
That's not too bad. And regarding the logistics of this 4-hour marathon, do I have to actually go to one of those sterile testing centers I joked about earlier?
You certainly can. PSI operates several physical testing centers throughout Colorado, and many people prefer that controlled environment. However, they do offer remote proctoring.
Oh, nice. From my couch.
Well, you can take the exam from your own home, but be warned, it is strictly monitored.
Oh, I bet.
Your computer must pass security checks, your webcam remains on, and the proctors are actively watching your eye movements. You cannot have your phone nearby, you cannot read questions out loud, and you cannot look away from the screen.
Wow. Okay, so it's not a relaxed open book situation at all.
Not even close. If you prefer the comfort of home, you have to be prepared to adhere to their strict remote testing rules.
Understood. So you hit submit on the exam, the screen flashes pass, and the adrenaline is just pumping. You walk out into the sunshine. But despite all of that effort, you are not legally allowed to sell a house yet, are you?
Not quite. Passing the exam proves your competence, but it doesn't automatically activate your license. There are final administrative steps to transition from a successful test taker to an official licensed broker.
What does that final hurdle actually look like?
First, you must formally submit your broker application to the Division of Real Estate, which carries an application fee of $485.
Okay, $485 for the app.
Concurrently, Colorado law mandates that you hold errors and omissions insurance, universally known as E&O insurance. You cannot activate your license without proof of this coverage.
And how much does that typically run?
Base plans for E&O generally begin around $188 per year.
It's fascinating that the state forces you to buy professional insurance before your license is even fully active, and certainly before you have your first client. But considering you're essentially drafting legal documents, it just proves how much liability you are taking on the second you get that piece of paper. You really need a safety net.
Precisely. E&O insurance is designed to protect both you and the consumer. If you miss a critical contract deadline that causes your client to lose a $10,000 earnest money deposit, that insurance is the buffer. It is an absolute non-negotiable requirement.
Right. It makes total sense.
Now, navigating the exact forms, fingerprint receipts, and insurance proofs can feel a bit like a scavenger hunt, but there are excellent resources out there to streamline it. For instance, Apex has all the information and direct links to these required documentation steps, which makes navigating the final paperwork significantly easier.
Oh, that's a great resource. So if we pull the lens back and look at the financial investment here, the 168 hours of education, the background checks, exam fees, the $485 application fee, and the E&O insurance, what is the actual bottom line to get this license in your hand?
When you calculate solely the strictly required legal expenses we've discussed today, the total out-of-pocket cost generally lands between $1,100 and $2,300.
Okay.
That variance depends heavily on which education format you selected and whether you need to retake the PSI exam.
I think it's really important to contextualize that $2,300 number. The way I see it, that $2,300 is essentially buying a legal hunting license from the state.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. It gives you the legal permission to go out into the woods and hunt for clients, but that fee doesn't buy you your camo, your boots, or your rifle.
That is an incredibly accurate way to look at it. The $1,100 to $2,300 merely covers the legal prerequisites to hold the license.
Yeah.
But holding a license and actually operating a functional real estate business are two entirely separate things. To actually track down clients, market yourself, and close deals, you need your hunting gear. Those are the optional business-building expenses. We are talking about joining a local board of realtors, paying subscription dues for the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS, purchasing lockboxes, and funding your marketing.
Which are huge expenses.
They are. They're practically required to function in the industry, but they are not legally required by the state just to hold the license. Because those operational costs vary so wildly, we will be covering all of those additional optional expenses in another discussion.
That makes perfect sense. Keep the legal requirements separate from the business expenses. But what about ongoing legal requirements? The moment I get licensed, is the state going to immediately hit me with a demand for continuing education classes like 3 months later?
You can breathe a sigh of relief on that one. Colorado offers what is known as CE relief for your first year of licensure. Yet once you are licensed, you do not have to complete any continuing education during that first year. Ongoing education requirements do not kick in until after your first license renewal.
So it's one less thing to worry about.
Exactly. Continuing education is absolutely not a startup expense you have to worry about today. The state gives you a grace period to really focus on getting your business off the ground.
That is a massive relief. Now, one final question regarding the landscape of all this. Bureaucracies love to change the rules, right? Is it possible that next year, Colorado decides to bump the requirement up to 200 hours or totally overhaul the testing process? Like, if someone is listening to this and planning to get their license in a year or two, is everything we just talked about going to be obsolete?
You don't need to worry about the rug being pulled out from under you. We currently have an incredible amount of stability in the industry.
Really? How so?
Because we now have signed legislation, specifically referred to as the Sunset Bill, we know that these exact license requirements are firmly locked in place for at least the next 11 years.
Wow, 11 years.
Yeah. The state has cemented this framework, so the roadmap we've detailed today is going to remain the gold standard for over a decade.
That is exactly what people need to hear, certainty. So to recap this massive journey, you start by conquering the 168 hours of education, understanding that whether you spend $375 on an online course or $1,200 on a live classroom, you are getting the exact same state-approved curriculum.
Correct.
Then you face the background check, utilizing the PAO process early if you have any skeletons in your closet, because honesty is the ultimate metric. You endure the 4-hour, 154-question PSI exam, fully prepared for how rigorous the Colorado State portion will be. And finally, you seal the deal with your application and E&O insurance, investing between $1,100 and $2,300 to legally hold the title of broker.
It is undoubtedly a rigorous journey, but it is entirely manageable when you understand the why behind each step.
Absolutely.
However, I want to leave everyone listening with a lingering thought. You conquer this mountain, you get the license, and the state officially deems you legally competent to safeguard the public's interest. But the state only tests your legal knowledge. They do not test your hustle. Once you have that piece of paper, the safety wheels come off. So what is the very first habit you need to build to actually survive your first year in the business? What's your very first move going to be?